episode 268 of the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. All over but the counting now. Let's start the show.
We are now the defenders of the stronghold of democracy and of equal opportunity.
You and I, as citizens, have the obligation to shape the debates of our time, not only with the votes we cast, but with the voices we lift.
The people are looking for honest answers, not easy answers.
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Clear leadership.
And we are, as a people,
not false claims and evasiveness and politics as usual.
Opposed to secret society.
But ours was a nation of the ballot, not the bullet.
And a secret procedure.
As a people, we cannot afford to let any group of citizens or any individual citizen live or labor under conditions which are injurious to the common welfare.
Black, white, Latino, Asian, Native American, young, old, gay, straight, men, women, folks with disabilities, all pledging allegiance under the same proud flag to this big, bold country that we love. That's what I see. That's the America I know.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There is nothing wrong with America that cannot be cured by what is right with America.
Welcome to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast. I am your host, Chris Hahn. Thank you for liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing, and telling your friends about the podcast. We continue to grow. Here we are, boys. Here we are, ladies. It's time. Election day is here. Here we are. We are at the point where all the talking, all the polling, all the prognostication, all the whining and gnashing of teeth and complaining and fake outrage over comments and whatever else you want to make are all baked in the cake. The people will now tell us what's what. And then it is up to us to accept the verdict of the voters, whether we like it or not, right? That's what makes us the greatest country on earth, right? The peaceful transition of power. And whether this is a transition of power or just a handing over of power from a president to his vice president, that will be determined on Tuesday. And I believe we will know the answer on Tuesday. And here's why I think we'll know the answer, right? Forget the fact that I do think that Kamala Harris is winning, and I think she's winning bigger than the polls show. I think the Ann Seltzer poll in Iowa should have woken a lot of people up to the fact that pollsters are, in fact, hurting. They're afraid to come out with to put out any of their outliers. And I think that we've seen steady progression in the polls for Kamala Harris over the last week. And I think that late deciders are making the choice for her. But forget about that. 2 years ago, early voting and absentee voting was widely utilized in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia for the first time. It's been 4 years. There has been improvements in it. Now, forget the fact that the Pennsylvania state legislature decided that they wanted to sow chaos by not allowing polling officials, voting officials, elections officials, whatever you will, to count the early vote before Election Day. But I believe that by the close of the polls in Pennsylvania at the end of the day, most of that early vote and mail-in vote will be counted. Maybe not all of it, but a whole lot of it. Because let's just be clear. Now, while this is going to be the highest turnout election probably in history, there aren't like an extra group of voters because you have early votes and absentee votes. You get about the same amount of votes. Right? I mean, maybe it's up 5% from previous years because this is a high turnout election. And you should be able to count those votes in a reasonable amount of time. Now, it would have been great if the legislature didn't want to help Donald Trump sow chaos and not allow the votes to be counted. It would have been great if they let these election workers count them as they came in. But they didn't. Those are the rules we're going to play by. And I think that they're going to get the job done. I also think that she's going to win Pennsylvania bigger than people think. And we'll know. I mean, look, we knew Fetterman won in Pennsylvania by like 11:30 on election night. Maybe it was 12:30. I was in Chicago on election night 2 years ago. We're going to know. I just think we're going to know. I also think she's winning North Carolina, and we'll know North Carolina by 11 o'clock, maybe earlier. And God, if we look up at Iowa, and I don't know if you watched or heard my special edition on YouTube yesterday, but I said even before the Seltzer poll that I thought Iowa could be a surprise state. Why did I think that? Not because of the Seltzer poll, but because of the Iowa caucuses where 51% of Republicans, 51% of Iowa Republicans showed up at a caucus on a cold, snowy winter's night to vote against Donald Trump. He still won the caucuses because there were like 9 candidates in the race at the time. But he did not get a majority in Iowa among Republicans. And I think that's because he's not nice. And Iowa's a nice place. People are nice. You ever meet somebody from Iowa? They're very nice people. There's a thing called Iowa nice. Donald Trump is not nice. So if he loses that great state, it's because he's mean. And he's not nice. And he doesn't even try to be nice. And cruelty is part of his act. So do I think we're in for a late night? Yes. Do I think we're in for a week of counting? No, I do not. I do not, even a little bit. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Welcome back. I am Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. If you're not already watching me on YouTube, make sure you go to the Aggressive Progressive on YouTube and click subscribe. If you like me here, you're going to let me know. You get to see me doing this, and you can see if I'm manic or crazy or whatever. So check me out on YouTube. And, of course, watch me on News Nation. I'll be on Monday night from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m., and then I'll be on throughout the day on Tuesday and into Tuesday evening. So check me out on News Nation wherever you watch TV. I think you'll like it. If you listen to me on the radio, you'll enjoy me on TV. Although I am getting a little chubby, and shortly after this election, we're gonna hit the diet hard because the exercise is not doing it for me anymore. So let's just talk about what happens after the election for a minute. Obviously, Donald Trump, when he loses, and he's going to lose, is going to say that it was rigged and that he was, robbed and blah, blah, blah. Look, we've heard this before, right? We've seen this act before. It's if he loses this election, it's because of how he behaved in 2020 when he lost, in part. Because he's losing, I believe he's losing 1 to 3% of Republicans who voted for him, maybe as much as 5% of Republicans who voted for him in 2020. And I think there's probably another group of Republicans who voted for him in 2020 who are just not going to vote. They, guys like Mike Pence, who can't bring themselves to vote for a Democrat. I can't bring myself, my sanctimonious self, to vote for a Democrat, even though I know Donald Trump's a murderer who tried to murder me. That's my Bill Clinton. Some reason I was using that as Mike Pence, but I don't know. Alabama, Arkansas, Indiana, they're not that far from each other. But they're not going to vote. They're not going to vote for him. They're not going to vote for her. That's a negative to him, right? You need to add, not subtract. I also don't think pollsters are really good at capturing that. I don't think they're good at capturing that. I just think that they are overestimating Trump's vote in these polls. Anything that has him over 47% nationally is an overestimation. Anything that has him over 48% in Pennsylvania is an overestimation. I just think that they are guessing what the vote total is going to be in some of these polls and not really allowing the poll to be played out. That's why the Seltzer poll is so interesting to me. It so clearly looks like an outlier. But when you really look at it, it could be a tie or even a 2-point Trump win in Iowa. It has a 6% margin of error. Right? It says 3.5, but it's really actually 6 because Trump's vote could be 6% more than it is. Her vote could be 6% less than it is. It's like a 3.5 either way. Right? It appears to be such an outlier, but maybe it did a better job of capturing those disenchanted former Trump voters and didn't just dismiss people as lying to the pollster who said that they were Republicans who were not voting for Trump, who have voted for Trump and will not be voting for him again. That's an even bigger thing. I don't know if you've noticed this in the polls this year. Every poll I've taken has asked me, regardless of who you're voting for this year, who did you vote for in 2020? And the pollsters are assigning a greater value to people who are telling them they voted for somebody in 2020 and then are voting for the same party in 2024. I think that's an overestimation of Trump's vote. I just do. I think it's off. I think he's losing this election, and I don't even think it's going to be close. Now, I could be back here Wednesday afternoon to tell you how wrong I was. And believe me, if I was wrong, I'll tell you I'm wrong. I'll also tell you when I've lost, I've congratulated my opponent, whether it was, in a sporting activity or a campaign. I've run a couple times, lost. I've been on campaigns where my campaign is lost, and I've won. And it's great when your opponent calls you after you win and tells you congratulations. And if there's anything I could do for you, please let me know. That's what we're supposed to do in America. That is not what Donald Trump will do. Donald Trump will do the most un-American thing on Tuesday. I'll tell you what he's probably going to do on Tuesday. Before the votes are even counted, he's going to declare victory. And we should all laugh at him when he does that. We should just laugh at him. We should mock him mercilessly when he does that. Because it's pathetic if he does it. See, he thinks that only people who support him should count, which is why he needs to lose. We don't just have disagreements on policy with Donald Trump. Donald Trump does not believe in the fundamentals of American democracy. He is not a small d Democrat. He believes that only his supporters should matter. And by the way, if you're one of his supporters, the minute you disagree with him even a little bit, he doesn't think you matter either. So, what's on the ballot on Tuesday? It's not just, his economic plan versus her economic plan. By the way, I haven't seen his economic plan. And all I've heard is tariffs, which will actually throw this economy into a freaking recession like we've never seen. Don't take my word on it. Take the Nobel laureates who panned it. Take the word of The Economist in their endorsement of Kamala Harris. We're not voting on that, though. That's not the only thing on the ballot. His vision of what America should be is on the ballot. And what he believes America should be is under his thumb. His small, puny thumb. I don't think that's what we want here. I think we want an America where the people, the governed, are at the top of the food chain, not the government. When Trump loses this election, and I believe he is losing this election, it'll be because he and judges he appointed and other Republicans around the country, like in Alabama and in Texas and in Georgia and in Pennsylvania, have been doing things to women, whether they like it or not, for the past 8 years. When he's on stage and he's saying, I'm going to protect women whether they like it or not, when we're seeing this gender gap in the polls, I mean, it's plain as the nose on your face. And we're seeing the early vote modeling coming back with not just a gender gap. We don't know how they voted, but we know who's voting. And we also know what the polls have been saying about how women feel about Donald Trump. Whether they like it or not. And look, I'm not a big believer that anything that's said or done the last couple days of the campaign matters all that much. But I do think it sums up exactly the problem Trump has, right? He does not care what women think. He didn't care with what E. Jean Carroll thought when he harassed her and a judge said he raped her. There are dozens of other women who have come forward to claim sexual assault and harassment. Didn't care what they thought. Didn't care what the teenage contestants of Miss Teen USA thought when he'd walk through the dressing rooms. Probably didn't care what his first two wives thought. I don't know if he cares what his current wife thinks. I don't know. I don't want to judge their marriage. But I'm telling you right now, it is a women versus men election. And if the polling about the gender gap is remotely true, and women have a turnout rate, look, they're about 13 points higher in the swing states right now, women over men. If that remains the case, by the way, in the state where it's biggest is Pennsylvania, just for the record. If that remains the case, and again, I don't expect that to be the final number, 13%. That's a lot. But when the same day vote happens and the early vote's over and we get to a number, if that number is 5% more than men in the swing states, he cannot win. Or the polling is just completely wrong, which I don't think it is, because I think we saw what happened in 2022. The polling has been pretty consistent, at least in gender identity of voters. You know, who are women voting for, who are men voting for. The polling has been pretty good on that. It's just the modeling who's going to show up that the polling may or may not be good at, right? That's where the polls kind of mess up, right? Who's going to show up, right? The pollster has to figure out who shows up. And in 2016, the pollsters got it wrong. There were a lot of angry white men that showed up at the polls for the first time. In 2020, they got it wrong again, but not wrong enough that Biden lost. In 2022, they got it wrong, but in the other direction, right? They were probably not figuring out that college-educated white women had left the Republican Party over choice, over bodily autonomy. I mean, they didn't figure that out, pollsters. Now, what are they doing this year? Where are they messing up this year? Where's the error going to be? I mean, that's kind of, what this race is all about, right? This will decide who wins and who loses. Where's the error? I don't know. I've never seen a gender gap this big in early voting, ever. You could definitely say that, in the past, more Democrats than Republicans and independents voted early. Trump's been encouraging his supporters to vote early, which was actually, a good political decision for them to make this time. But the gender gap is tremendous. And the gender gap, who comes out in force, men or women, that will determine the winner of this election. And saying, I'm going to do it to them, whether they like it or not, again, last couple of days of the election, it's really more about turning out your vote. But it sums it up pretty nicely for me. And I think that's why he loses. Listen to this. I'll be right back. Right? Welcome back. I am your host, Chris Hahn. I'm at Christopher Hahn on X, Christopher Hahn NY on Instagram, and ChristopherHahn.com. Make sure you're checking me out on YouTube. I'm at The Aggressive Progressive on YouTube. If you ever want to know what I looked like when I was here, you can check me out there. Now, you might sense a little sadness in my voice. You all know I'm a Yankee fan. And I also played baseball my entire youth, even into college. I didn't play in college. I played STAM usual in the summer. You guys know I played football in college. You look the ball into your glove. Okay? You look it into your glove. And when you're a pitcher, you cover first on a ground out. Nobody on that team better get a Gold Glove this year. I'm disappointed. Mostly because they should have won that game last night. Cole pitched tremendously. 5 unearned runs in 1 inning on errors by Judge, by Cole himself. I don't know who they gave the error to on that play at third. Probably Jazz. I don't know. Look the ball into your glove. I was on TV with Mick Mulvaney a little while ago, and the meanest thing he said to me is, this race is going to be closer than the Yankees-Dodgers series. Okay? Right to the heart, man. Right to the heart. But I will be getting some sleep. You know, these games go kind of late, and those of you who know me know I'm not a late night guy, and I'm not an early morning guy either. I can't be staying up till midnight. You know, I just can't. It's not who I am. I'm not that kind of guy anymore. I mean, I stay up on Saturday night for SNL, but I'm just not a late night, stay up all night kind of guy. Just not who I am. And these games have been going pretty close to midnight. And when I went to the game on Monday night, I didn't get home till after midnight. So it's a, on the good side, I will get some sleep. My voice will recover. On the bad side, it was a horrible experience for me. It was a horrible experience to watch my Yankees lose like that. Look, they were down 3-0. The chances of them winning the series was slim, but I thought they were going to be the first team to be down 3-0 and force a Game 6. I thought that was happening, and it did not happen. So, disappointed, yes. Gonna soldier on for the next couple of days until we get to the election. Got a lot of talking to do. Been doing a lot of TV, doing a lot of radio, doing a lot of these for you. It's just, got to get through it. You just got to get through it. So let me just end by discussing, Donald Trump and the garbage truck. And it really is, it's like an ink block test. You see what you want in it, right? I look at it. I see Michael Dukakis in the tank. That's what I see. And by the way, I don't know if I'm just seeing it as a biased guy or if I'm seeing it as a political guy. When I worked for elected officials, we had 3, simple rules. No singing, no dancing, no hats. Now, there were no hats involved here, no singing or dancing, although he does dance, and it's pretty weird. There was a vest, a costume, if you will, and I don't really think that the costume helps. I think the costume probably needs to be, maybe Rule 3A of my no singing, no dancing, no hats rule. But it's Republicans look at that and they say, wow, look at him. He's really a man of the people. He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. A lot of my Republican friends on Halloween dressed up with that. I was considering putting on a vest I got to go to a Halloween party. And I don't like dressing up. I don't. I'm not a guy who dresses. I just don't. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't want to put on a costume. And I got to go to one on Saturday night. Friend of mine, neighbor of mine, good people. I don't dress up. I just don't. I go like this. I go as Chris Hahn. Right? And, you may have heard of me. I go as Chris Hahn. But I was like, oh, that's a costume. I'll put the vest on. But every Republican on earth is wearing that costume today. Every Republican man on now, maybe I'd put the orange war paint on, but then I'm dressing up, which I don't want to do. So, but Republicans looked at it and loved it. Democrats saw weirdness. But what do people in the middle see? Right? I mean, Dukakis was a Democrat. I could tell you right now that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm not old, and I was not old enough to even vote when that happened, but I was in high school and I remember it, and we definitely studied it. It was not a good look. And I don't think it was a good look for Trump either. I just don't. Just in my political mind, I don't think it's a good look. Now, again, it's the last week of the election, right? Couple of days left. I think anything inside of like a week, it's all about getting your vote out. I don't think anything really moves the needle. I thought that Puerto Rican trash argument thing he did over the weekend was horrible, and I think that will move the needle a little bit. But I think it's too late to move the needle right now. So it's really all about, forget about the margin of error. I just forget about it. Think about the margin of effort. Who is working harder to win right now? I mean, that's what you need to focus on. Focus on it for yourself. If you are nervous, go find a way to volunteer on a campaign. This way, you're not just being nervous. You're using that energy and putting it to good use, and maybe it'll calm you down if you talk to some voters and they give you a good experience. And if you encounter some voters that are not giving you a good experience, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. Right? These are all anecdotal evidence things anyway. But really, the effort that you put in right now should calm you. Here we are. I mean, look, if I'm wrong about this election, it's because I have misjudged the American people. I just don't think that the American people want 4 more years of chaos. I don't think the American people want 4 more years of cruelty. I think that the American people want a president who is not interested in dividing the country, right? I mean, we could talk about the divisions in this country and, how divided we've been since 2000, but I don't feel that George W. Bush or Obama or Biden have gone out of their way to expose the rifts between between Americans. They might have had policies that people on different sides of the political spectrum disagreed with, but they didn't go out there and say those people are evil. Those people are trash. Oh, don't tell me about the Biden comment. I don't care. It's stupid. Donald Trump has said people who disagree with him are enemies of the state. Joe Biden never said that. George Bush never said that. Ronald Reagan never said that. Obama never said that. No, nor would you even picture in your mind them saying that. And Kamala Harris won't say that either. What Donald Trump has done over the last, 9 years has turned our politics into something unrecognizable. Well, it's election day. Go out and vote. I'm going to remind you now, as I always do, to seek the truth, question everyone and everything, even me. Seek the truth. I know it's out there, and I know you'll find it if you look for it. And I'll be back here next week to tell you the truth as I see it. I'm Chris Hahn. Happy voting, America. And thanks for listening to the Aggressive Progressive Podcast.